You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Archaeology Show. TAS goes behind the headlines to bring you the real stories about archaeology and the history around us. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Archaeology Show, episode 227.
On today's show, we talk about all things Brazil, including a skeleton of a disabled teen with a bracelet, a 27,000-year-old potential human site, and a horrific story of a notorious slave ship.
Let's dig a little deeper into Brazil, I guess. I don't know. They got a lot of stuff there. Welcome to the show, everyone. How's it going?
Hello.
Just as a reminder, if you're listening to this in the audio podcast, we are on YouTube as well now. Come over to youtube.com/ I don't know what it is. It's not ArchPodNet. Just look for Archaeology Podcast Network.
Do we link that in the show notes? We probably should.
I'm not sure we do. We should start doing that.
Maybe we should start doing that.
Yeah, we've had that YouTube channel for as long as we've had the APN.
Yeah.
But we've almost put nothing on it.
Yeah.
However.
Now we do.
Yes. Now I'm starting to put pretty much all of the podcasts, even if they don't have video, onto YouTube. So if that's where you consume stuff better, even if it's just audio, then head over there. And you can even subscribe to it as a podcast playlist.
Oh, yeah. Then the new episodes will pop up for you. Yeah.
Does all the normal things podcast does. That just started with YouTube, actually.
Yep.
So.
Cool.
All right. Well, we have a slightly unintentionally Brazilian themed episode today.
I know, totally. Like we were looking for news articles like we always do, and all of a sudden we had two from Brazil, and I happened to be reading the third one that was also from Brazil. So we figured, hey, let's have a Brazilian themed episode today. So there you go.
All right. Well, let's I guess get into this.
Yeah.
So this first one, I really thought this was interesting when I first saw the article itself. The headline, I actually saw this a few days ago and then picked up again when we did the research. But skeleton of disabled teen with bracelet puzzles archaeologists. Archaeologists are always puzzled.
Yeah, what are they puzzled about? I mean, I guess we'll get to that. But I read the article and I'm like, what is puzzling exactly?
Yeah. I mean, they're not really puzzled yet.
Yeah.
Everything is puzzling when you first find it.
I mean, I guess so. Like they're still doing testing and drawing conclusions. This seems like more of a press release situation rather than a full paper, peer-reviewed situation.
I mean, this came out July 18th and they said which is a few days ago, and they said that they are going into the field next week, which probably means shortly after this gets released, they went in the field. Yeah. So they're doing another field season out there. But some of the stuff that we're talking about was found, between now and 2019 when they started digging in this area. So let's get into it.
Yeah, totally.
This is the Serra dos Confucios National Park in Brazil. And just cutting to the chase here, they found a teenager with a spinal condition buried with a bracelet. They know the teenager is female, but they aren't exactly sure when she lived because they're still waiting for radiocarbon dating to come back on that one. They've sent it out for analysis, but they don't have it back yet.
They just know that she's pre-European contact, basically, right?
They're assuming that based on some of the other stuff that's been found around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an assumption anyway. And, trigger warning for anybody else out there, because I know these are touchy subjects. Not only does she have a condition that people do have today, but which we'll talk about, but her full skeleton, or at least from her waist up, is visible on the pictures when you first click into the article. So if you don't want to see that kind of thing, then don't click into the article. Yeah,
I mean, it's an extremely well-preserved skeleton, so it is, from a scientific perspective, really interesting to look at the pictures. But also, generally speaking, we don't really condone publishing pictures of skeletons, especially because the people that they belong to or the cultures they belong to don't really have a say in what we're doing with these pictures of their people. So anyway, it's kind of a touchy subject there. Yeah.
Interesting thing is the bracelet was found on her wrist. Right. Yes. So in the burial, which means more than likely the bracelet was on her wrist when she was buried.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not
her wrist.
Did I say list?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay, wrist. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
On her wrist. And again, 300 to 350 years old prior to European dating, prior to European contact. Wow, my mouth is just not working right now. Yeah, my mouth is just completely broken. Okay. Anyway, the condition she had was a severe case of spina bifida. And spina bifida is a birth condition, so you're born with it, that causes a malformation of the spine and the tissue around the spinal cord.
Yeah, it's basically like the spinal cord doesn't connect properly when it's coming together.
Yeah.
And it can be nothing, like cause almost no issues other than the fact that it's there and it's like your spinal cord's not fully connected properly. And sometimes it can like be completely disconnected. And it sounds like this girl had it completely disconnected and like it would have been a severe disability for her. Yeah.
So much so that they said it was unlikely just from looking at her that she'd be able to walk and would have to have been taken care of for her entire life by the people in her family group.
And that is always like the thing that is interesting about cases like this is because it's so easy to assume that populations pre-modern populations didn't take care of their people with disabilities.
I know,
but
which is dumb.
It's just simply not the case. Like people 500 years ago or 2,000 years ago or even 10,000 years ago cared for their people. And if they had a disability, they probably took care of them then too. And this is just another example of people taking care of somebody.
I mean, listen, if you're hunting and gathering and you're not staying in one spot for very long, it's going to be more difficult to take care of somebody like that. And they may not last as long just because of that. But they're not just going to like cast them aside and be like, see ya.
Humans just are not that ruthless. No. They're just not. I mean, maybe some were individually speaking, but I just don't think that human, and maybe that's too optimistic of me, but like, I just don't think the human population as a whole is that ruthless. I just don't.
Well, and one more indication that she was probably, deeply cared for by this family is the bracelet she was wearing had around 1,000 small beads on it. The material is still unknown because they're still doing analysis on it, but it was likely seeds.
Yeah.
According to one of the lead archaeologists. Yeah. It's just crazy thinking of that. It's a relatively small bracelet for somebody who had small wrists and has 1,000 beads on it.
Yeah. So I would say one thing about that, because this is kind of the problem, not the problem with the way media reports things, but they do latch on to numbers like that, the 1,000 number, and think, whoa, it's so many beads.
Yeah.
But so my wedding shawl that I knit for our wedding had like 1,500 beads in it.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's a whole shawl.
It was a whole shawl. But
it could have had 15 million.
It could have. But I'm just saying that these beads are so small that getting up to that number of 1,000 is like, it actually doesn't take that long, and it's not as many as you think, like a very small bracelet ends up having 1,000 beads in it because it's so small. It's not to take away from the importance of it. I think it is important, but
could have been just common.
It could have been. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is that it might have just been like a bracelet that every teenage girl in this time period was wearing, which still indicates that she was important and taken care of and part of the community. But I wouldn't think that she was like anybody super special unless you had other stuff to compare it to, and this was the most beads or the most important beads or whatever.
I mean, aside from being someone's daughter.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
So and it's possible too that somebody really scrambled to make this at the last minute as like a burial bracelet.
They could have.
And much like your wedding shawl, probably stayed up till 2:00 in the morning the night before the funeral. And
well, look, sometimes we have deadlines and we just don't make them, and then you're doing it the night before. That's sort of the MO for my life. And weren't we just researching this episode like minutes before we started recording?
Don't tell anybody that.
So
yeah. All right. And just so you know, the seed bracelets, I did a little light research on that. They're made from I guess it's acai.
Acai.
Yeah. A weird C-A-I. Although I didn't type it that way because I couldn't find that character. But that's a fruit.
Yeah.
And it's made from those seeds. And there's a kind of a cool article that I just kind of tossed in here. I tried to find Brazilian seed bracelets.
Yeah.
And you know what? All the links go to Etsy because people are doing these now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you got these really intricate, usually flat, like a collar almost, but flat things with very intricate designs on them.
Yep.
And they're still made out of seeds.
Yeah.
And the acai seeds back in the day and even today, obviously the fruit they were taken out of the fruit and then they were sanded down after they were dried and made into these small beads.
That brings a question to my mind because going back to my wedding shawl, the beads that I used are called seed beads.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think they're made out of seeds anymore.
Maybe not anymore.
I think they're made out of glass in a lot of cases.
That might just be traditionally named them.
Yeah, but when you see seed beads on Etsy, it's not seeds that they're using. They're using glass, like the Czech glass beads, and or Swarovski crystals are another one when they're the really shiny ones. And So, yeah, the seed bead name has really stuck throughout the years, but it's not actual seeds anymore.
Well, there were also a number of articles mentioning specifically like acai
That's
seeds.
like a Brazilian technique.
And being in Brazil. Yeah. So
for sure. I used to have, when I was a kid, I had this little loom. And if you're watching the YouTube video, you can see me like making these wild gestures. But I had this little tiny loom and you would run thread across it. And then you could weave in using seed beads, you could weave in patterns and make that collar, like that flat collar thing like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I loved doing it. It was very time consuming though, and it probably did take many thousands of beads to make one. I think I successfully made like one of them, honestly, the entire time I had it.
Right.
So there you go. That's another edition of Rachel Makes Things.
Indeed. All right. So they also found the skull of a tapir next to her. And it's kind of close to the skeleton, but they're unsure if there's a connection or if it's just coincidence. I mean, maybe it was a pet.
What kind of animal is that?
Yeah. So a tapir, I had to actually remind myself as well. It's a crazy herbivorous animal. So it's an herbivore. Yeah. And it's about the shape of a pig in size, but not like a massive pig. Okay. You know, just like one of your average pigs. But it has a short trunk. So it kind of looks like the cross between a pig, somewhat of an anteater, and an elephant.
Okay.
Yeah, they're wacky.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another interesting fact is they're all over South America. And it's one of, I didn't write this down, but it was one of only 3 odd-toed ungulates that are still extant, I believe, that lived in the area. Okay. You know? And this one's been there for a while because they came over sometime during the Pleistocene, which dates from 2.58 million years to 11,700. But they didn't come over until obviously the isthmus was made between North and South America, you know, basically around Panama. That was pretty interesting, I thought, is when they came over. Now, I don't think they're 2.5 million year old animals necessarily, evolutionarily speaking. Yeah. But sometime in that broad time span.
And they are extinct now, or they are still around?
Yeah, they're still around. Yeah, we're probably going to get one.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we got plenty of room.
No, not so much.
Yep. So that's about all we have for this article today. There's actually not a lot about it because they're still in process of doing things and they're going into excavation. So they're waiting on dates and stuff. I'm sure we'll get some papers out in, academic time frame of 6 to 9 months from now. Yeah.
I'm guessing with the great preservation that they have on the remains that they have something that they can date, and then they'll be able to get a really good time frame for when this girl lived and who was taking care of her and who loved her so much that they gave her a 1,000 seed bead bracelet.
Indeed. Yep. All right. Well, with that, we will take a break and see you guys on the other side. Back in a minute.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search. Match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Archaeology Show, episode 227, the All Brazil episode. Yeah, today we're going to go over to today. Today is today.
Today is today.
Today is the same day as it was when we recorded the first segment.
It sure is.
Sometimes through the magic of podcasting, that's not true, but I'm just an idiot in this case. So anyway, we've got another one from Brazil, but before Brazil was Brazil. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the last one was before Brazil was Brazil too. True. But only one of these is from when Brazil is Brazil.
Right.
So when I say they're all Brazilian, we're actually wrong.
Brazilian prehistory, I guess.
Yeah,
prehistoric Brazil.
You know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the article is called, if I can click on it in time here, Early Humans Survived an American Ice Age, archaeologists say.
Did you find that title like super weird?
Well, that's why I immediately clicked on it.
Yeah. Well, that's true. It did draw us in.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be like missing the point of what this article is about. But anyway.
Yeah. And again, so this is yet another example of humans living in this hemisphere well before we ever thought they did.
Yeah.
And at this point, let's assume half of the examples we have that go beyond, say, 20,000 years are legit. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's the thing. Even if only one of them is legit, that calls into question everything else.
Yeah.
Right? So something has got to be real here.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is just crazy. So they found some necklaces, basically. We're calling them necklaces because you'll see why in a minute. But made from ground sloth bones. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really causing all the uproar here. Anyway, they're actually bone pendants. So these things that would have been worn like on your chest, you know, around your neck. That's why they called it a necklace. But it's like actually
threaded onto some kind of something, you know, leather strap or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. And they were found in the Santa Helena rock shelter. And this is somewhere around central Brazil. Mm-hmm. So the bone pendants were found with the remains of 2 extinct giant ground sloths. And these things estimated to be 3,700 pounds on the average a piece.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So like elephants, basically.
Yes. If you want to see a real one, watch La Brea. So...
Are we really talking about that show again? As if it has anything to do with truth and actual history?
The fact that they put a giant ground sloth in La Brea is actually a little bit impressive, to be honest with you.
Well, I guess. Yeah. You know, Google extinct mammals from North America and just throw them all in there.
Or just like visit the tar pits and throw all that in there.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, the pendants didn't actually come from the skeletons. They are giant ground sloth bone. Mm-hmm. We know that. But they didn't come from the skeletons of the animals.
That they found in the cave?
No. They were from the animals in the cave, but not their skeletons.
Right.
It was from their osteoderms, it's like armadillo armor, but it's still bone. So it's kind of it's on the outside. They have lots of them. You know, it's not like a what am I trying to think? Like a stegosaur, stegosaurus or anything like that. But they said it's more akin to like an armadillo's armor, and it's like a hard outer shell, but it's not a shell; it's bone.
Okay,
yeah.
And so they know these pendants came from some of the animals that are also in the cave.
Well, let me jump to the end of my notes here real quick because the actual paper is also linked in here and it's open access.
Okay, yeah.
And according to the paper, the remains included thousands of osteoderms, thousands of them.
Okay.
Presumably from these 2 extinct ground sloths that died there.
Oh, but it would be kind of difficult to tell for sure. But why would they be there if they weren't from them?
Here's the other thing. Of those thousands, only 3 of them appear to be modified.
Oh, that is interesting too.
Yeah, and they have clear holes drilled through them.
Yeah.
Like even if water was dripping on it for eons, you'd be hard pressed to make a hole like that.
Right. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they bored a hole into the bone.
Yep.
And then they were able to put some kind of cord or whatever it was through that and then
whatever they had.
Wear it as jewelry, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or some sort of symbolic thing, you know? Oh, drink. All right.
No, you didn't say ritual, but okay.
That's the same thing. Anyway, they dated the layer, and if you look in the paper, just look in the abstract. Mm-hmm. And the abstract even mentions like 6 different dating techniques that they used, all this crazy stuff and these analytical techniques to look at them and just a whole bunch of stuff. They really did their thorough research there, which is leading me to believe that
it's like
this
legit.
is real.
Because that's always my question is like, how legit are the dates?
Yeah.
But if they have 3 different techniques
3. I said 6, but they use 3.
Yeah. If they have that many techniques coming up with the same thing, then that is a pretty solid.
And that thing is 27,000 years ago.
That's long ago.
Yeah, it's a long time.
More or older than anything, really.
That's not quite the oldest site that people think they've found.
It's not quite the oldest site in the Americas?
Yeah, in fact, I think there's some in South America that are supposed to be older, like Monte Alban, I think is, or something.
But like there's a lot of sites that are sort of iffy as far as their dating.
Well,
so
if you ask some people, they're all iffy.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
If even any one of these, like I said, is dated to even the late teens, I mean, you're talking earth-shattering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, to put this into perspective, this would have been about the time of the last glacial maximum. For those of you that don't understand ice ages, they happen all the time, and they take, anywhere from 15 to 20 to 50,000 years to ebb and flow, basically. But at the last glacial maximum, which means the furthest extent of the glaciers, the most glaciers we're going to have, after this point they started warming up and shrinking. But because glaciers suck up all the water, they got to get that water from somewhere, and it usually comes from the oceans.
Right.
And the oceans themselves would have been about 400 feet lower than they are today,
And
which is a lot.
That'll translate to miles of shoreline, miles of it that is now exposed.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes even 10 feet translates into half a mile in some places.
Yeah, totally. And that goes back to the idea that there might be all this old evidence for people being here earlier than we ever thought, but it might be underwater.
Yeah.
And water can sometimes preserve things, but it can also sometimes destroy things. So that evidence might be completely gone, never to be found again.
Well, and as an aside a little bit, there are definitely lots of people out there that are looking at rivers and other water sources that go into the ocean and into larger bodies of water when they thought bodies of water, especially that they thought were lower at some point in time. Right. And because people, there's usually archaeological sites near rivers. If you're going to look anywhere, you're going to start near a river because it's got animals that come there for water. So you get those. You've got water.
Yeah.
You've got plants. Yep. You've got all kinds of stuff. The one place I can really think, two places I can think of, I can see the maps in my head, and I've seen these years ago. The San Francisco Bay, that whole area used to be a meadow, just, south of the bridge.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was all like a meadow.
Yeah.
In the southern end of that bay, and I mean it's still kind of marshy down in the far southern end before you really get to Silicon Valley. But anyway, yeah, that used to be a meadow. So there's definitely things under the water there, and then Gulf of Mexico, I can think of near the Florida Panhandle. I remember seeing research about people just following river channels in, and then you get these topographical maps under the sea, and you could still see the channels where the rivers were.
Right.
So they've got underwater archaeologists that are trying to use different methods to
follow those rivers.
Yeah, to find the sites.
that
are still buried. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, some of the analysis they did on these pendants showed that they should have been worn, right? Because you not only have the hole that would have had the cord or something through it, but you can see characteristic wear patterns on the pendants themselves that look like, it's banging and rubbing up against somebody.
Thing that happens when it is against skin, basically. Yeah.
They don't know how or why these things ended up in the rock shelter, and in fact 2 of them were broken, and the other one they said maybe it was just lost or dropped. The fact that there's thousands of them there, thousands of the osteoderms, tells me that maybe this was, there's a possibility that maybe this was a source for those kinds of things. People knew they were there.
Yeah.
And they were like, I need another bone pendant because mine's broken, and they left theirs there. Or maybe the broken ones were broken. I don't know what the analysis on those was, if those showed wear or if they were just showed processing and then were broken, maybe in the process of processing them.
Right.
Who knows? But I guess the further analysis would show that. But anyway, there's other stuff too, like rock art, human-shaped figures painted on the walls. You can see that in some of the pictures. And yeah, lots of stuff. So they also found stone tools near the ground sloth skeletons. Now, I haven't seen pictures of these yet, but the bones themselves of the ground sloths are far too degraded to look for evidence of butchery, because that's the first assumption. You've got tools, you've got other stuff. Who killed these things?
Yep.
And why are both of them, 2 of them, in this rock shelter?
Right.
So...
Yeah, that is really interesting. And it does, I did go looking to see what the, not criticisms of this paper are, but the hesitations that the academic community might have. And I actually wasn't really finding a whole lot, which makes me wonder, why didn't this make a bigger splash when it first came out? Because it has, these were first discovered a couple of years ago, and this is coming back through the news cycle, I think, because they've done more dating and stuff like that. Yeah. But this has been out for a couple of years, and I just wonder if maybe the wear on the pendants is not stacking up to what other scientists think that it should look like. What is it? Why is this not making a bigger splash? What is, I don't know. I can't tell from these articles.
I think people just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Where does it fit?
And there's no human remains here. There's kind of tools, but it sounds like they're super degraded. So without a better preserved site, it's really hard to draw conclusions on a handful of artifacts.
And one of the things they mentioned in the paper too was that they found 2 distinct Pleistocene archaeological layers with what they called a rich lithic industry associated, not just like a handful of artifacts, a rich lithic industry associated with the remains of these extinct ground sloths. Okay. So I think one of the problems with anything post 15,000 years ago is we don't know where to put it in time. There's so many disconnected things that have been found in disconnected areas across North and South America that they don't connect to anything. They don't. There's not a line that we can draw from one to the next. Yeah. Now, there's not necessarily lines we can draw with a lot of early Native American stuff either that we know about, but at the very least we can say, well, we knew the ancestors of the Cherokee were in this area, or something like that. And we can do in a lot of areas a lithic history going back, 10,000 years plus. Yeah. But we can't do that with these.
Yeah. The trends are generally speaking very broad though. Like you'll have the point typologies are very broad across like North America. And I'm just thinking like when you have this, where you have like this site over here with these old things and this one over here with these old things. And it's like you said, it's just hard to create like a pattern of not development necessarily, but maybe regional patterns or even the chronology is it's kind of difficult when they're so spread out and so different. So yeah, it's really hard. And then it always brings up the question is like, how do you have these like super old sites down in South America when up here in North America, we're looking at, 15, maybe a little bit more is proven, but I don't know. The whole question of the peopling of the Americas, it just is complicated and there's no good answer right now. So.
Yep, there isn't. So anyway, that's about it for that one. It's pretty cool. It's ongoing research. And again, check out the article. It's actually from the Royal Society.
One more thing. Do you think that those holes could have been made by anything natural? Like could a bird have bored through like that?
They're too smooth. The only other thing that could have possibly done that, just to throw something out there, would be water. Water dripping.
And then my next question would be, could people have shown up, 10,000 years after these mammals died and just use the bones that were hanging out in the cave because they look like fun and they thought, why not? Let's make some pendants.
It's possible. And I mean, they said the bones of the not mammoths, sloths. Yeah. The bones of the sloths were highly degraded by the time they found them now. So I don't know what they would have looked like, 5,000-6,000 years ago. It depends on the environment in the cave. Right. And what people would have done with it. I guess I wouldn't rule that out until they had some solid dating.
Yeah, they need something.
Well, they have solid dating, but what would it have looked like 10,000 years ago?
They have a good date for the bones, but not necessarily for the pendants. And so they need to sort of have a connection between those and the dating that they have, from what it sounds like.
I don't even know if they can tell that the pendants actually came from those ground sloths, if there's a way to do that.
Right. Maybe DNA, if they could pull that
The word
them,
fossil was mentioned.
Oh, really?
Oh, and that's one of the... I did read that in the article. Now that you're saying that. They did say that it looks like the hole was bored through the bone prior to fossilization.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's something. I mean, it makes it at least that old, however long it would have taken to fossilize. Yeah. Fossilization can happen quickly or slowly depending on the environment. Yeah. So it's another question that you can't answer.
Well, I mean, they would have to really analyze the conditions of this cave through time. And I don't think they've gotten that research done yet to know, or at least to estimate how long it would take something to fossilize. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's really interesting. If they are as old as they're thinking right now, then that's just yet another puzzle piece that just doesn't fit yet, but it will. I'm sure it will at some point. Researchers will figure it out, but it's cool to watch it unfolding in front of us, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a break, and on the other side, we're going to talk about a horrific story again out of Brazil. So that's a good lead in. Please join us.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome.
Don't go anywhere.
Yep. See ya.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Ready to level up your career? Text DISH to 44043 now to dive into a world of exciting technician opportunities at DISH. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, DISH offers the perfect platform for your success. Connect with us today to discover how you can be part of a dynamic team driving innovation. Connect today and join the DISH family, where innovation meets opportunity. Text DISH to 44043 to kickstart your journey towards a rewarding career.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Welcome back to episode 227 of the Archaeotech podcast. It's not the Archaeotech podcast.
Not the right one.
That was just a short promo for the Archaeotech podcast, a show I also host.
Oh, you did a really cool episode.
Oh, yeah. Incidentally, check out, if you're listening to this in real time, it was like episode 206 or something, but it was the last one we released. Paul couldn't make it, and I was kind of running short on some time. And so I interviewed basically ChatGPT and Google's Bard and asked it digital archaeology questions.
I love it. It's so fun. I could hear your side of the conversation and sometimes the other side of the conversation while you were editing it, and it sounded very fun and like scarily accurate.
Yes, I've had some feedback already from our friend JF, who listens to this podcast and is likely listening right now.
Yeah.
He thought I was incredibly boring and that I didn't ask the right questions. And that it was basically quoting Encyclopedia Britannica. But I think that was kind of the chat was.
Well, yeah, it probably was.
He said I should have argued with it more. And I was like try to get it into an error or something like that. But I wanted to make the point that people are asking it these questions and they're taking the answers and using them. So I did try to ask it almost intentionally, like somewhat broad questions.
Yeah, and you were focusing on doing it more like an interview, not a debate necessarily.
Well, I structured it that way, but that was just for the style of the show. Well, it is still interesting. Like if you go ask it basic questions like that, those are the answers you're going to get. And it is a little bit Encyclopedia Britannica, but that is maybe not wrong. The format of every single question for ChatGPT was, I was like, what is the blah, 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 blah. And it was like, it would give me this really insightful paragraph, or a couple paragraphs of stuff. And then it said, some examples are, and it was 5 to 10 things, bullet pointed, that try to make its point. Literally bullet pointed. Yeah. And then it would say in conclusion or summarize it at the end.
It's like writing a college paper every time.
It was definitely a format.
Yeah.
And incidentally, this is not a ChatGPT conversation, but if you are using ChatGPT from OpenAI, it is not accurate, right? And you need to know that. So if you're just having fun with it and it's writing emails for you or something, which some people are doing, but another friend of mine, he said he actually replaced Google search on his Android phone with a link to ChatGPT, and he just asked ChatGPT questions because it gives them to him it gives him answers in a more conversational way without all the clutter of Google.
Yeah.
But ChatGPT was trained up to September of 2021, and its information is not current after that.
Oh, so it's like 2 years behind, basically.
Almost.
Okay, interesting.
Now, Google's Bard will search stuff 7 seconds ago.
Because it's Google.
Well, because they're plugged in.
Well, we don't really have to do this because I know this is not that podcast, but I'm curious if you notice differences between Bard and ChatGPT when you were interacting with it, or if it kind of felt
I did Bard right at the end.
Yeah.
Probably because I just found out about it last week. But I did it right at the end, and I didn't really get a chance to really argue with Bard, but it did have, some slightly more current information in its examples, at least.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's still screwed up. I specifically asked it, what are some advances in digital archaeology since September of 2021?
Oh, you asked that specifically?
Specifically. And one of the examples was from 2020. And I'm like, did you not hear the question? Yeah. So
maybe it was published after 2021.
One of the questions I did ask it, though, is I was like, the Archaeotech podcast has interviewed a lot of people, and it sounds like we're doing a pretty good job. How influential is the Archaeotech podcast?
Oh, did you?
It gave a really good answer.
Did
I gotta
it really?
say.
Oh,
yeah.
well, I guess you got to go listen to the podcast to hear the answer.
Although it started with, the Archaeotech podcast isn't as popular as some other podcasts. I was like, suck it, Bard. What?
That's like brutally honest.
I know.
Like, I mean,
they're not wrong.
Numbers don't lie. It's kind of true, but still. Oh
I know we've got a
God.
small audience by design.
Yeah,
but,
well,
you know.
it's a niche topic. I mean, you have an
Yeah.
audience that fits the nicheness of the topic.
Exactly.
That's
It did
so
say we have
funny.
10,000 subscribers, which I don't know what subscriber means in its vocabulary because that's a
Yeah.
weird name. That's a weird word.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it's getting that.
Yeah, 'cause
we
that-
definitely don't have 10,000
that's not
listens every
accurate.
episode.
Yeah.
And not in the first 30 days anyway. But some of them approach that through time,
Right,
but
right.
not in the first 30 days, which is kind of the critical metric.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Anyway, speaking of
Okay.
through time.
Yes, through
Yeah.
time. This is not the Archaeotech podcast, as we established 4 minutes and 52 seconds ago.
Oh my God. Yes. All right.
So this next article is also from Brazil. And the title is Archaeologists Discover Wreckage of Notorious Slave Ship Off Brazil. And
I'm like, weren't all slave ships notorious? But, you know.
Yeah, well, this one was particularly notorious. And let me just tell you, like, this is not a fun news story at all.
We kind of went down a little rabbit hole of hell on this one too with some other stuff that's probably not in the podcast.
We
but
did. Yeah, we'll give a couple facts about just like the slave trade in Brazil and some other things that aren't, it's like you should know, but they aren't fun to know, I guess is the moral of that story.
Yeah.
But so anyway, Brazil was, as you might imagine, because most of the Americas it was built on the enslavement of millions of Africans and indigenous people.
Yeah.
And this is a more recent number. I actually saw a couple different numbers about how many Africans were enslaved and taken to the New World. But the most recent research seems to say that it was around 12.5 million who were brought to the Americas as early as 1540, or maybe even, it might have even been like 1520s. I saw various different dates there, up until the 1860s, when finally the slave trade was mostly abolished everywhere. So that is a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think you found an even worse statistic about that number.
Yeah. I saw something that said 1.8 million Africans died en route, either from ships, you know, either being scuttled or crashing because it was kind of a hazardous journey, or more likely from them just suffering from the hazardous conditions, dying on board and being chucked
just
overboard.
like not being fed, terrible disease, like just the awful conditions. So like 12 million people are enslaved, and then like almost 2 million of them don't even make it here to be enslaved.
Right.
It's just disgusting.
Yeah,
and
that's
insane.
like what, 15% just off the top of my head, something like that.
Something
That's
like that.
It's absurd.
Yeah, it's awful.
I mean, people back then, they thought of slaves as commodities, and even if that were okay, that's a high percentage to lose.
It's a very high percentage.
Why wouldn't they treat them better in order to allow them to survive, to sell them? I mean, I hate to just like perpetuate that, but like as a business person,
it does.
You got to care a little bit.
It's just like this gross disregard for human life.
Yeah, it's
that
ridiculous.
Is just mind-boggling to our modern brains, I think. But they stole these people. They took them forcibly at a very low cost to themselves, probably, and then turned around and made a profit off of them. So maybe they didn't care that they lost 10 to 15% of them, potentially. Yeah. Or maybe that 10 to 15% was like in losing a whole ship, which is what we're about to talk about in this article. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Well, quickly before we get there, you mentioned, you know, horrible to our modern sensibilities, right? Mm-hmm. But I did look up, I had to know which country and when was the last to abolish slavery. And technically, it was Mauritania, which I wasn't really sure that was, but it's basically in West Africa, oddly enough, where a lot of slaves are coming from. And they abolished slavery in 1981, although it was more of a symbolic gesture because there weren't any laws to actually prosecute people who were enslaving other people. And they didn't do that until 2007.
So insane.
Yeah, and that was because of massive international pressure. And I did see another thing where the United Nations did an international abolishment of slavery in like 1945 or 1950 or something. But apparently these guys said, we don't care.
Yeah, I'll just keep doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Well, there are a couple like nuances with these terms that we need to cover, but we'll get there in just a second. So of those 12 million Africans that were enslaved and brought to the New World, almost half of them ended up in Brazil. Like 5.5 million is what I saw. Now, Brazil is gigantic, but still like that almost half of them ended up there is also crazy.
I didn't even know that slaves were going to South America, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about
idea.
the Caribbean, of course.
Yeah,
but,
the Caribbean.
But yeah, the eastern side of South America probably had a similar development, where they were enslaving people to get shit done. So, yeah.
Well, it was the same Europeans that settled there. So,
yeah, exactly. So, okay, so let's talk about some terms really quick. There is the abolishment of slavery itself, and then there is the abolishment of the slave trade. And those are two very different things, and that is what comes into play in this story. So the I'll do my best to pronounce this. The Eusebio de Queiroz law, which was passed in Brazil on September 4th, 1850, and that abolished the slave trade, but not slavery itself. Mm-hmm. And kind of the same thing happened in the U.S. The slave trade was abolished in 1820, but as we know, slavery itself wasn't abolished until the Civil War. And then with Brazil, it was even later. Brazil was the last country in the New World to abolish slavery, and that didn't happen until May 13th, 1888. Yeah. More than 20 years after the United States. So when you have this disparity between when the slave trade was banned and when slavery itself was banned, it means that it created this time period where people could still have slaves. They could still use slave labor. They just weren't legally allowed to buy them because the slave trade itself was abolished. But that's where the black market comes in, and the slave trade still happened. In some places, it was cracked down on harder more than others. Like the U.S., I think, did a much better, well, I'm going to hope that the U.S. did a better job of cracking down on the slave trade. I think it did, but I didn't research that. So don't, take me to the cleaners on that one if I'm wrong. But
well, I wonder how much of a factor too, or legally, I hate to say legally, but legally, how children of slaves, if they were allowed to procreate.
They were, yeah.
Do those automatically become the property of the slave owner?
They do. Yeah, yes. And
and that's not considered slave trade?
Yeah, somehow that's not slave trade. That was the only way to get new slaves after the slave trade itself was abolished. So yeah, all this is just freaking terrible, but
that sets the stage for the article we're talking about.
It does. So all of those laws and the banning of the slave trade and the abolishment of slavery, blah, 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 it did not stop some slave traders. And one example of one that it did not stop is Nathaniel Gordon, who was an American slave trader, and he carried on bringing slaves illegally to the Americas until the 1850s.
Daddy G, still doing it.
Yeah.
Pirate.
Now, he did kind of sort of meet the end of his slave trade days, at least in 1851. And there's a ship owned by him, led by him. It was on the way from Mozambique in Africa to Bracelet in Brazil. And they got there by way of the Sea of Angra dos Reis. And obviously, 1851, the slave trade is already abolished only for a year, but it has been abolished in Brazil at this point. And the authorities in the area were onto him, and they knew his ship was coming. They were following it. They were chasing him. And because of that, he had 500 slaves on board the ship that he was bringing into Brazil.
Which is an ungodly number in a ship that size.
Yes. Like, it's even crazy that many people were on that ship. But it is believed that he purposely sank that ship with all 500 slaves on board, probably in shackles, didn't even know what was happening to them. And all of a sudden water is just pouring. Oh God, it's just like so awful. But it's believed that he purposely sank it to kind of like cover his tracks so that he could get away. That's insane. The selfishness and I don't even have words for like how awful and disgusting and selfish that is. It's like it happened 150 years ago, 170 years ago, and it still like just makes me like want to cry. It's terrible.
Well, I guess if you're going to put somewhat of a silver lining on it, it was illegal, and he did live as a fugitive for the next decade.
And the U.S. wasn't having this either. Like he was a fugitive in like all countries, I think.
Right. They knew of him.
Like his behavior was not.
Yeah.
He was taking some flack for his behavior for sure.
Yeah. Well, he lived in at least a little bit of fear, not anything like slave fear, but at least a little bit of fear from getting caught, and finally met a justified end 10 years later in the U.S. in 1862 when they hung him for his crimes.
Yeah. But still, like, it just doesn't feel bad enough. Like, And how many ships was he able to bring in illegally before that?
Yeah.
Too. Or actually, what it sounds like is probably when the slave trade was abolished in the U.S. and other countries, he just like moved on south, to places where it wasn't illegal. And then all of a sudden it was illegal when they finally abolished the slave trade. But he just figured he was above the law. And that arrogance brought him to this situation. And it's horrific that 500 people had to die because of his arrogance, thinking that he could just sneak them into Brazil. But
something that I'm just thinking about now, we talk about slavery a lot in this country, actually. And maybe it's because I'm an archaeologist and you are too. And I don't know. I hear about different things in like the African Burial Project and stuff like that, looking for African cemeteries because they were largely just like plowed over and dismissed. Yeah. Not that the graves were, but like the tombstones and stuff. So the graves are still there, but like we don't know where a lot of African cemeteries were. And I'm just wondering though, God, I never hear this part of the story. And if anybody listening knows of somebody we can interview or a book we can look at or something like that, I want to know what's happening in Africa, because was it Europeans controlling the capture, because you had to capture people over there.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet they just didn't go.
Forcibly taken, right?
Like, but what does that mean? Were there other tribes around? How did that go? Was it Europeans doing that, or was it enabling like elite Africans that were also doing that and saying, yeah, you can take these guys, but you're going to pay me for it?
Yeah. Or like, were they trading for some kind of good that they wanted from the Europeans or something like that? I wouldn't doubt if there was something
mixture
like that
of
going
the two
on.
of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Somebody's getting paid off.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just curious about that side of the story, because over here, you never really hear about that.
No, you just hear, I mean, as you should. It's the people who were taken that are the center focus of what we're talking about. But
right. But just historically speaking.
Yeah. So. Like how did what circumstances even brought that about? Yeah. Yeah. Well, back to this article, and we haven't even really gotten to what they found here. We've just been talking about this terrible history of this terrible person and the like truly horrific thing that he did. Yeah. But archaeologists from like several Brazilian institutions and also North American institutions, including the Afro Origins Institute. They basically knew this story. They knew what happened, and they knew-ish where to look to find it. And they started searching for this sunken ship last year. And this article is them announcing that they believe they have found it. Nice. And in one of the articles we linked to, there is a picture of a ship, but I'm not really sure that that's the ship. It might be like a open source image that they pulled in. It's not clear that that is the actual ship in that picture. It really just kind of says sections of a slave ship on it. Well, there's that one, and then there's the second link has a picture of a ship, but it's like a NOAA link to the photo. Right. So yeah, I'm not sure that they're actually even releasing any of that information yet. They might not be. It sounds like this is very preliminary. They've just discovered it. They're just getting into the whole like excavation, underwater archaeology. Maybe they won't do a full excavation. Maybe this is a like underwater cemetery tomb kind of situation, and out of respect for the dead, they don't want to disturb it, which would be absolutely valid if that's the choice that they make regarding that. Yeah. But knowing that it's there and knowing where it is and kind of proving that the story happened the way that our history says it happened it's nice to get that validation of the story at least. Yeah. And to know that 500 people did die horrifically. I mean, it goes to partially tell, I mean, we don't know who those people were and we probably never will. Right. But it goes to, at least put a little bit of a cap on their story, as horrible as that is. But they're so voiceless in that, they probably didn't come from tribes and villages and things where a lot of things were written down. Their people, their families long gone. Yeah. And they were just abducted and put on these ships and then forgotten in time, and this at least brings their story back. It's a story that we never knew about and never would have talked about if it weren't for these researchers being dedicated to finding the ship. So it gives a voice back to those people in some way, even though it's still like a really terrible story. Yeah, so, for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, on that like truly depressing note, I know I sound like we're ending an episode of the Top Gear? No, not Top Gear. Oh, on that. Yeah. It's Jeremy Clarkson. Jeremy Clarkson. On that horribly depressing note. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, look up anything you can on this kind of stuff and check out the links in the show notes. Yep. There's a number of other articles about this too. So, take a look at those. But
Anyway, yeah, I think we're going to call it right there. And then we will be back next week. We are working on we're working on an episode that's a little more broad, talking about some stuff we've done in the past. So I'm kind of saying this to make it real and have Rachel finish some of the research she's been doing on it. So
yeah. I've got a lot of topics that I've been wanting to research. So we'll see if we get to it. But there's so much good, so many good articles being released lately too.
Yeah.
There's great research going on. And every time I'm like, oh, I'm going to just deep dive a topic, another cool article comes out and it's like, well, we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So anyway.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, thanks everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Archaeology Show. Feel free to comment and view the show notes on the website at www.archpodnet.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at ArchPodNet. Music for this show is called I Wish You Would Look from the band Sea Hero. Again, thanks for listening and have an awesome day. This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Culturo Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Chris Webster.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.